Alright, here we go. Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask review. For some people, there's an order to things, a repetitiveness that keeps things moving at a worry-free pace. You get deadlines to keep things moving, and everything by its sheer nature keeps itself in balance. For some people, though, the system is broken. In the back of your head is that lingering feeling that tails off into panic as it considers all the possible things that could go wrong if one of these deadlines, one of these needs, one of these demands are not met. For those who suffer from some form of anxiety, myself included, this game might tap into something really deep. To me, the game itself feels like a true artistic representation of what anxiety feels like in game form. Out of all the Zelda games I've played, I think this one might be the most divisive. I know for a fact that the fastest way to ensure that someone who is new to Zelda games doesn't become familiar with them is to have them play Majora's Mask first. I know this because I've tried it. It seems to be a really bad starter game. With weird foreboding music, creepy vibes, looming destruction, and a much higher than usual difficulty spike, this is definitely not a beginner Zelda. Which is kind of a shame to me because I would honestly place this high on the list of video games I've played, period. So what is it about this game that affects people so strongly? Let's find out. The first thing you'll notice when starting to play Majora's Mask is that the whole engine is practically identical to Ocarina of Time. Most notably, a revamped text box that actually lets you skip the normal way if you want, or the fast way that you would in Ocarina. The game picks up right where Ocarina of Time left off. Link is looking for an old friend in the Lost Woods. After getting horse-jacked, he pursues. Falling into this very trippy sequence, he runs into Skull Kid wearing Majora's Mask, who proceeds to transform him. I think a lot of people at this point were confused because they're playing Zelda and they just walked straight into a horror movie. That said though, this is a really well executed sequence, and if they wanted their audience to be terrified, they absolutely succeeded. Looking into interviews, the idea for the sequence was born after Aonuma had this very nightmare. This game had a tight deadline, and they were working around the clock to get everything done. In their anxiety-induced panic state was basically born the entire concept for this game. You get 3 days to save Termina, or the moon will fall to the earth. It's absolutely brilliant. It's sci-fi, it's horror, and yet it's an open-world linear adventure game. Don't worry though, it's not actually 3 days total you get to beat the game. Implemented is a brilliant time-based system that you can manipulate to go forward half a day or backward to the first day. You can also slow things down, which can be really helpful if you're doing something that's taking a while to figure out. As long as you can get up to Skull Kid on the first cycle, you get the ocarina from him, and after a brief appearance from Zelda, the full concept is realized. 4 dungeons and a 3-day cycle that you can manipulate to an extent. The catch is, once you reset time, all your progress is lost. You do get to keep the important items collected, so once you beat a temple, you really do beat it. You don't have to do the whole temple again after it's finished, unless you want to. It absolutely gives you an incentive to try to make sure you beat the temple within a given 3-day cycle though. One thing I think this game does really well is teach you a bunch of complex systems in under an hour. In one 3-day cycle, you learn your main objective, you learn your way around Clocktown, you learn the 3-day system and different ways you can manipulate it, and you learn about masks and the fact that they can grant you different abilities. All in about one anxiety-ridden hour. One really cool mechanic this game has is the masks. In The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, there are 24 masks granting you different abilities. 5 of them allow you to transform into something else entirely, with 3 of them being accessible anywhere once you collect them. The rest of them keep Link the way he is, but provide some kind of advantage. Among my favorite are the Bunny Hood, which lets you run really fast, the Mask of Truth, which lets you talk to people and kind of read their thoughts, and also lets you talk to these stones. And it just looks really awesome. The Bomb Mask allows you to blow things up, and one of these things, unfortunately, is your face. I will say that some of these masks are kind of lame and only really serve to give you access for one piece of a heart. This one, for example, where you just march along and draw a line of peeps.
What?
Having a 3-day warning for the moon to fall is a great starting point for the story. The plot practically writes itself, and they make absolutely sure to take advantage of this. I'm not going to spoil every plot point in this game, and I don't usually use spoiler warnings, but I think this one warrants it, because trust me, this is absolutely worth experiencing for yourself. If you don't want the cafe side quest ruined, skip here. After exploring Clocktown for a bit, you find this lady who tells you her son is missing. She gives you a mask in order to inquire other people about who might have seen him. You run across his girlfriend, Anju, who works at the local inn. She gives you a letter to deliver. If you don't give it to the hand in the bathroom, you you put it in the mailbox. You kind of observe who this guy is at some point, because you see him sort of sneak out to get the mail, and he acts really suspicious, running out and quickly running back to his spot. Once you know where that spot is, you can sneak in while the mailman delivers his mail, and having read the letter, he knows who you are and what's going on. Majora transformed him into a child. He had a mask, and he's gonna use it for his wedding, and it got stolen by a local thief. Again, you find this out by observation, but in another quest you prevent him from stealing a bomb bag, and if you made it to the 4th temple, you can see him prancing around his hiding spot. You pretty much track him with Cafe to his hideout, and once you get to the hideout...
Hold on, let me just, slow down time here so the next part goes a little slower, because I don't want to have to do all that again, you know, this cafe side quest, across the 3 days, you know, you get me, right?
You're greeted by a series of traps that you have to puzzle your way through quickly before the mask reaches the end of the conveyor, which is very anxiety-inducing, by the way. I failed this area multiple times as a kid, but it actually wasn't that hard as an adult, as long as I made sure to rush. Just like the start of this level, like knowing that mask that they've built up is just being so important to him. He's got all these things going on, and he just wants to get this mask to, you know, give him one chance to like really show his gratitude for this like end of the world wedding that he's gonna do. And the first thing that happens is it starts on a conveyor on its way to just be thrown out. Once you get the mask, he rushes back and you find Anju waiting for him. The last few minutes he makes it back and they have somewhat of a mini ceremony in the hotel room. At this point there's only a few minutes left and the two lovers romantically wait for death as the moon is moments from falling.
Before you play the song and timer, reset everything, of course.
One thing that's really upsetting is just the thought that every time you play through a 3-day cycle and you don't intervene, that means the mask got tossed out and he basically didn't make it. It's a really upsetting thing to think about, you know? And that goes for all the side quests. The main story may only have 4 dungeons, but I would actually argue that I got way more out of the story combined with all the side quests than I did from Ocarina. For a game made in 1 year, there's a hell of a lot of ambition in this project. I want to talk about the transformation masks in a little more detail. The 3 main transformation masks are the Deku, Goron, and Zora masks. As a Deku, you're smaller, you run faster, you can do these fun, fast water hops, and you can shoot cute little bubbles. The southern swamp area and the first temple are basically designed around the original version of the Deku mask. He probably gives you the most disadvantage in battle, but you get a ton of upsides when it comes to navigating the area. He gets big horns as his musical instrument, which is a lot of fun. I also love his story arc with the monkey and the princess. Long story short, the Deku tribe holds this poor monkey captive, and after you save the Deku princess and show her what's going on, she basically proceeds to beat the crap out of her father. The first temple is swamp-themed, and aesthetically speaking, it's definitely unique. It's a function very much like a classic Zelda temple, where obtaining an item at the halfway point allows you to progress forward. And its boss is reasonably challenging and allows some flexibility for how you want to attack, since the only thing stopping it from getting damaged is its shield and its giant sword. It's got a reasonably unique design that doesn't have a giant pulsating tumor of an eyeball acting as a built-in weak spot. If you can't tell, I kinda don't like the remake. The Goron mask is a blast. If I had to describe my happy place, it would look something like this. Oh yeah, review. Snowhead is where you receive the Lens of Truth, and if you play the side quests, a really amp and powerful ass sword. Definitely one of the more rewarding moments in the game. It's really just getting started with this area though. In addition to getting the Goron mask, the sword upgrade, and the powder keg bomb, Snowhead Temple is where things start getting really interesting with dungeon design. The temple is built with a pillar at the center, affecting what you can access, as you punch out pieces to make it go lower. The boss is pretty much designed around the Goron mask. It's a little challenging, but once you learn how to fight it, it won't hinder your ability to beat it quickly. I want to put emphasis on the fact that each boss can be beaten quickly with some practice, but they're still challenging. Because it's a principle that the 3DS version throws out the window with this giant goddamn gross glaring eyeball nonsense in a game where you're fighting time as much as you're fighting the boss. Why do they do this? It doesn't make it harder, it just makes it take longer. I do want to point out that this isn't a comparison video, but how can I praise what I liked so much about the original game without comparing the two, when so many of the things that they took out of the 3DS version were things that I liked? With this said, I want to divert your attention for a second to demonstrate what I think is the best way to play this game in 2021 if you don't have an emulator. As beautiful as the 3DS version looks, the nerfing of good mechanics and appropriate challenge from the boss fights to maintain the 3-day anxiety immersion that truly makes this game great is kind of a bummer. If you want to retain all the things that made the N64 version great, cut out a lot of the problems with a better controller, and also work with high quality output, you're shit out of luck. But I have a compromise for you. The N64 is really low quality, and its controller is trash, so don't use this. At the same time, I'm not a fan of the button layout on the GameCube controller for playing N64 games. Having the C buttons replaced with the C stick and some side buttons is not ideal. I don't know, to me personally, it feels really awkward to play. Since we live in, the future, there's this thing called good third-party controllers. So, if you're lucky like me and you got a copy of Majora's Mask on the Virtual Console before that was killed off, get yourself a RAFnet converter and a good controller with C buttons. We're not done yet though. 4x3 in 2020 is no good on a 16:9 TV. If you get one of these HDMI adapters, you can get Majora's Mask with good controllers and jagged edges in all its wonderful HD glory. This, my friends, is the perfect compromise to keep immersion intact.
Actually, I take that back. This is way better.
The Zora Mask grants you the special power of swimming. On land, his fins sort of act as an upgrade replacement for the boomerang in Ocarina. He can also use an electricity shield. Now, I know in comparison videos, people have shown how slow the Majora's Mask 3D swimming was, but I'm about to drop a really controversial opinion. Are you ready for this? You ready? I think the swimming in Majora's Mask, in the original, should have been even faster. Look how long it takes to get across this vast ocean, even with the original swimming. Have you ever played 200cc in Mario Kart and then started to get good at it? That's what I want out of my Majora's Mask swimming. Give me the fastest possible speed. I have a need for speed with this mask. Mirroring the Gerudo area in Ocarina of Time, where you have to stealth around to save the guards, you have to stealth around these pirates to get all the Zora eggs, as well as swim around this eel pit. If you want to reunite these adorable seahorses, you need to assist this pervert by taking a picture of one of these pirates. Yeah, I don't like him. But they're so adorable though.
Well, I guess I gotta do it then, huh?
It actually took me so long to finish all the lead up to the Great Bay Temple that I had to play the Song of Time after getting the ice arrows. So I did what any fan of sequence breaking would do, and I started working on... How do you even say that? I can
Hannah, you fucking idiot.
area.
Wait a minute. Is it just me or have I heard the song before? This isn't a reused asset from Ocarina of Time, though. Oh, you know what this, like, really sounds like? Hold on. Okay, so if you go into the basement of, Boo's castle in Mario 64, and you play the song in there... Wait a minute, no, they're not the same song, they just sound similar. It's like the same style and the same instrumentation, but they're totally different. Oh my god, I get so sidetracked, never mind.
Here's where you come across one of the most tear-jerking moments in the game. I'm not even gonna talk about it, I'm just gonna play it for you. Not crying. Before you even go to the Stone Tower, you get what almost feels like its own mini-dungeon, with a mini-boss beforehand. Chances are you aren't finishing this and the Stone Temple Tower. One amusing thing, if you approach the boss wearing this mask, he calls you out for trying to fake being someone else, and the battle continues. After you defeat him, he teaches you this song, and... Ew! Oh, gross! Holy nightmare fuel! What the... God! It's so gross and ugly! This game is filled with a lot of imagery that's like trying to be scary, but this by far is the scariest thing I've seen in the game, and not necessarily for the right reasons. God, look at his teeth! Why does he have teeth? Like, N64 gross, creepy smile teeth! What is that? So after using this nightmare fuel clone ability to make your way up the tower, which is admittedly extremely tedious, especially in a game about like trying to maximize your usage of time, this is definitely the longest and most difficult part of the game, with the gimmick being that you flip the temple upside down once you get the light arrows. Honestly, I think this is brilliant. They had to consider this for most of the rooms in the temple, and I think it's executed brilliantly. I will say my first few runs against this boss, especially not picking up the heart container in the Great Bay Temple since I sequence broke, felt really impossible. If your strategy is to use the Giant's Mask, you really need to take advantage of those pillars and choose how long you use the mask for. This is one of the few instances where I ran out of time and had to reset and do everything again. At least I got to start at the halfway point since I already got the light arrows. Honestly, this is probably the biggest turnoff for people who play Majora's Mask. If you fail, you often have to redo a lot of things since the system is tied to your save file. The trade-off is when you succeed, the tension and release is beyond satisfying. Honestly, it's kind of up to your skill level as a player how your playthrough of Majora's Mask goes, and that's very not Nintendo-like. Eventually, I succeeded, and so it was time to tackle the Great Bay Temple. The game actually considers this possible order, by the way. Again, a leftover from the early days of Legend of Zelda. Though it's not exactly easy, you still are allowed to do things out of order if you have the right items. Anyway though, the Great Bay Temple is probably the most interesting and confusing temple in the game. It's also the most divisive. It challenges your spatial awareness skills by making your access to different areas in the temple dependent on the direction of the water flow. The direction only gets changed once, by the way. It doesn't stop people from complaining about it, though. I think the level of challenge from the platforming end of this temple is definitely a bit too much to ask out of someone using a Nintendo 64 controller, but I want to emphasize that we live in the future. There are 4 different controllers you can use if you're playing this on the Wii. Like the Snowhead boss, being designed around the Goron mask, the Great Bay boss fight is designed around the Zora mask. You could use arrows technically, and once you get the Fierce Deity mask, you can just beat it with sword beams, but I actually got a faster victory over it using the Zora's mask. I think I found the best example of what truly makes this game great playing through this section, by the way. It was really down to the wire. I had to be very strategic about how I went after this boss, because you can't actually use your instrument underwater. So if I ran out of time and he prevented me from getting back up to the platform to use the Song of Time, I may have actually gotten a game over. It was really tense. Needless to say, after I won, I felt pure satisfaction. This game isn't just an artistic expression of what anxiety feels like, but it's a mastery of tension and release, making you feel immeasurable accomplishment when you're able to succeed. So, yes, you can go to the final boss and take care of business, but that wasn't good enough for me. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is one of my favorite games ever made, and after 20 years of being in love with this game, another mere playthrough just wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do everything the game possibly had to offer. If you play, let's say, Super Mario 64, for example, you might find a lot of things don't hold up, but you get such a wide array of things to do. Even if some of these things are tedious or easy, if you don't want to do something, you can go do another thing. The dynamic is completely different if you're going for a 100% completion, though. That's when you really get to see how much of the content is filler versus how much has some depth. I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised at how full of life this world was. For a game made in a year, the cafe storyline is incredible. A lot of the missions are tied directly to which day and what time it is. One of the missions literally involves protecting a farm from aliens. I will say, some of these are kind of unnecessary. Finding all the random frogs scattered through just a few temples and the southern swamp, just why? And the biggest offenders, in my opinion, are the shop games, where you're hitting targets with bombs or a bow. I'm not gonna be able to replicate this feeling in review form, so, I just beat this stupid fucking minigame that I hate a lot, and I'm never gonna have to do it again, and I feel great! That's right, I don't want to see your stupid fucking face. Is it just me, or does he kind of look stoned? All in all, the game may not be perfect, but they make sure to reward you for completing these side quests. As mentioned before, the masks are a lot of fun. This blue milk is practically a cheat code, giving you infinite magic for the remainder of the 3-day cycle. Here's what I do when I get infinite magic. If you can collect every mask and complete these 4 obstacle courses, you basically get an overpowered win instantly mask for your efforts. This thing is awesome. It looks cool, it's powerful as hell. For all the tension buildup you get from everything you do in this game, this is the ultimate release. I went back to every boss and kicked their ass in 1 day of the game's time. In conclusion, not only is this one of my favorite games to play through, but I felt some immense satisfaction out of completing it, as well as some sadness. All the feelings I felt while playing this game for the first time, always experiencing something new each playthrough, that's officially over. There is something bittersweet about that. In my playthrough, there was one final obstacle between me and completion, and it's super appropriate for the theme of this review, so let me show you how my road to perfection ended. My favorite aspect of Majora's Mask ultimately ends up being the final shot, completed at the buzzer. I will play many games in my lifetime, but this could be the most satisfied I've ever felt with a video game. This is what defines Majora's Mask. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask may not be for everyone, but for the niche group of people who identified with this game, it goes straight to the top. For me personally, it provided an outlet to take my own anxiety and turn that experience into something that was ultimately satisfying. I'm gonna miss the feeling of knowing I still have more to complete, but I think it was worth it to experience that euphoric feeling one more time of beating the buzzer and completing it 100%. How do you like that 100%? Every mask, every heart piece. We can't really see it here, but I got the big quiver, or the biggest quiver, the biggest bomb bag, all the bottles, all the items, a true 100%. Yeah, I got no life. As the credits roll, you get to see the faces of all the different storylines you completed fulfill their happy ending. Majora delivers what's honestly one of my favorite lines about friendship. Whether a parting be forever or merely a short time, that is up to you. As Skull Kid turns to face you, he recalls the song you taught him all the way back in the forest back in Ocarina of Time, and recounts his friendship. We end the game on a really sweet note of a drawing on a tree. Link had found the friend he was in search for at the beginning of the game. Ultimately, we've come full circle. Again?